Renée Fleming, thank you so much for being with us today. It's lovely to see you.
My pleasure to be here.
Now,
Thank
I
you,
can't
Andrew.
tell you. Oh, you're more than welcome. But I can't begin to tell you how excited everybody is in Reading about your visit this week. It's so exciting for all of us. So you're going to get a wonderful welcome. And if I can, I want to ask you a few questions about the glorious music you're going to sing. You're going to sing in both halves, which is a wonderful treat for us. And we begin with the unbelievably beautiful Four Last Songs by
Mm,
Strauss.
mm. Yes, this is such an iconic work. It's probably the greatest piece that certainly that I know of in my lifetime of an orchestral piece for soprano voice. And I never tire of singing them. I've sung them more than anything else in my repertoire. And there's something magical about them. First of all, there was one other song that was found later, and otherwise they are the last songs. In fact, he didn't combine them. I don't think he intended for them to be combined in this way or in this order. But he had great taste in poetry, and they're so enigmatic. You can invest your life into them in a personal way, which I think is one of the marks of art that speaks to everyone. So I happen to love these songs. And if you start with spring and go to summer and then September and then Im Abendrot, which is sort of dusk, it tells us, it does give a kind of an arc, a lifetime arc. I mean, you love them too, obviously. So
I do. And I loved what you said about the idea of them being with you throughout your life and you learn more and more from them. I was feeling quite guilty because when I've conducted them several times, and once I had the great pleasure of conducting them with you singing, and I worked so hard for that. And I've been studying a lot for this performance as well and thinking, my gosh, I'm learning so much more about this music. They're very short numbers, but the depth of feeling and emotion is immense.
True.
And what's in there?
I always have felt that Strauss he must have had an amazing secret life, because we know that he played cards with his friends and he had a very strong wife, a soprano, of course, which makes me happy. That was good. But I just, when people ask, who, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? I always say Richard Strauss, because I just kind of wonder what's inside. The depth, huge depth in the music, and even Capriccio, the love that comes out of these men in small hidden snippets is just, they're earworms. They stay with you.
And of course, Strauss wrote this right at the end of his life. So I think he was aware that whatever else I've got to say, however else I'm going to sum it up, this is the time. And these are the miniatures that are going to contain all of this. But how do you keep it fresh all the time? Because you must have sung these songs hundreds of times.
Well, they're old friends in a way. And so I'm happy to greet them, and I'm happy to allow, it's sort of like, what's happening with you now? How have you been the last few months, or whatever the last time it was that I sang them? I don't plan. I don't sort of say, this is my interpretation. I allow them to unfold. And it's a very Zen. I would say it's a meditational experience for me to sing these pieces. And I think they are a meditation on life, a musical meditation. There's something about the arcing lines and the sustained quality of the singing. In fact, physically, I even feel that my heartbeat must quite slow down when I'm singing some of these extremely long phrases.
Oh, that's intriguing. I look at it and I think, as you say, there are these wonderful arcs taking place there. And it's a challenge for string instruments and wind instruments to maintain those arcs, but then to do it with one single voice, a singer's voice, must be a technical challenge.
Well, it is, but it's also something that I've developed over time, so it suits me. And the other thing that always surprises me is there's so much going on in the orchestra. There's so much texture, and yet how he managed to have all of those lines, and it's really a contrapunct in a way, and do it in such a way so that you can still hear the soprano with a sensitive conductor and orchestra, obviously.
The challenge.
Well, and I always tell people, there's a huge spectrum of singers that do this piece, from a light lyric. There are singers who are much lighter than I am who've sung it, to dramatic sopranos. Kirsten Flagstad obviously premiered it. Mm-hmm. So it can take a variety of singers, but then the orchestra has to be sensitive to where the singer is on that spectrum. And I'm on the lighter side. So, but I love them. To me, when somebody asks for them, I always say, oh, good. I get to do them again. Yeah. Well, by the way, I'm very excited to be coming to a new Pennsylvania city, because I am a Pennsylvania girl.
Is that right?
I was born in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and I've never been to Reading, and I'm very excited to come and visit someplace new.
Well, the orchestra has been in existence for something like 106, 107 years. It's much loved by the community. And of course, this is part of the pathway back to some semblance of normality. And there'll be an added degree of excitement over that. Now, the second half, though, is a complete contrast to this. Where does this come from?
But that's sort of the fun of it, is that you don't have to do something similar. You can do something different. So the story behind And the People Stayed Home is interesting, because Kitty O'Meara was a retired school teacher early in the pandemic. She wrote this piece of prose that completely went viral on the internet. I do think we should change that word. And it was so popular. John Corigliano, the composer, called me up and said, I want to set this to music, and I want you to sing it. And I said, great, wonderful. What's the instrumentation? He said, a cappella, nothing. He said, because I want it to represent especially my women friends who live alone in New York, who are so isolated. So it was hard. I mean, I made a film of it, and it took me, I would say, I became obsessed with it. I probably did 50 takes.
Wow.
I just felt like it was never perfect. So eventually I gave up. But so that's on there, and that's certainly timely. And of course, we're not entirely through the pandemic, but we've made so much progress that we can perform.
Yes.
So for me, that's real progress. And then we go to music theater, and I've had this wonderful opportunity to sing on Broadway and to act on Broadway actually as well. And so kind of doing pieces from that world, and a brand new piece that Andrew Lipper wrote for me called The Diva, which is fun and personal. So I think people will enjoy that. So it's just, I think it's really nice to come back and do things that are a little bit different. And then I've got 3 arias. So Last Rose of Summer is a British Isles folk song, but composers very often incorporated folk music into their operas, and Flotov did this with the opera Marta. I think it's incredibly beautiful. It was featured in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbings, Missouri, the film that starred Frances McDormand. And then an aria from The Other La Boheme, by Leoncavallo, and of course, O Mio Babino Caro from Johnny Schicchi. So that's a huge favorite. I sing it pretty much.
Everybody's favorites, all in one show.
It's somehow perfect. I say the most famous 3 arias for soprano are all by Puccini. So,
well, I have to say, Renée, we can't wait for this. We start rehearsing tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday. And then you're joining us later in the week.
Yes.
Very grateful to you for taking time out of your unbelievably busy schedule to talk to us. And
it's my pleasure.
Reading is looking forward to seeing you. So Renée Fleming, thank you very much. See you in the week.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you. Looking forward.